May 12, 2017, a regular Friday morning. In a hospital ward in the UK, a nurse is logging in to check blood test results for a patient needing emergency surgery. She clicks the mouse. Nothing happens. The screen flashes red. The terrifying broken English message pops up. Oops, your files have been encrypted. It was not a one-off. At that exact second, 47 other hospitals across the National Health Service were staring at the same red screen. In Spain, factory robots locked up mid-weld. In Russia, government computers went dark. This was no glitch. This was no accident. Someone had pulled the trigger on the largest, fastest-spreading ransomware attack in human history, WannaCry. But here's the twist that turns this into a terrifying cybercrime documentary. The attackers made a mistake so stupid, so basic, it would save the world. But only if one person, a two-year-old kid in his bedroom, noticed it in time. To understand how the world nearly collapsed, we have to start at the source of the weapon. And that weapon came straight from the vault of the United States government. Let me ask you something. What if I told you the NSA, the U.S. National Security Agency, accidentally armed a hostile foreign power with the digital equivalent of a nuclear weapon? It sounds like a ridiculous spy thriller plot, but it is true. Our rewind button stops exactly 28 days before WannaCry on April 14, 2017. A mysterious hacker group calling themselves the Shadow Brokers does the unthinkable. They leak a massive trove of the NSA's most classified cyber tools onto the open internet. These were not just simple hacking scripts. These were the digital master keys, developed by the NSA's elite Tailored Access Operations Unit. Buried within that leak was a piece of code so potent, it terrified the cybersecurity world. Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue was a vulnerability exploit, a piece of code that could gain total control over almost any Windows computer on Earth. It did this simply by exploiting a flaw in the server message block, or SMB protocol. No password needed, no login required, and virtually no trace left behind. Think about that power. Your PC, your office network, a bank's servers. They could be hijacked in milliseconds. Microsoft was actually aware of this vulnerability before the leak. They released an emergency patch, labeled MS17010, on the 14th of March 2017. Install the update, and Eternal Blue cannot touch you. Problem solved, right? Wrong. This is where human nature and poor cybersecurity protocols become the real threat. You know that annoying update and restart notification you always click remind me later on? So did everyone else. By May 2017, industry estimates suggest a staggering 62% of companies and millions of individuals had not installed the patch. They were sitting ducks. Worse still, millions of computers worldwide were still running Windows XP or other obsolete systems. These were machines in hospitals, ATMs, and older factory control systems. Microsoft had officially abandoned XP in 2014, meaning there were no new security updates, no patches, no protection. The most potent cyber weapon in the world was now floating around the dark web, waiting to be picked up and used. Security experts screamed warnings. IT departments entered panic mode. They knew a major attack was coming. The only questions were who would pull the trigger and what would they create? The answer came from Pyongyang, North Korea. A notorious state-sponsored hacking collective known as the Lazarus Group was watching the exploit markets. Unlike most nation-state hackers focused solely on espionage, the Lazarus Group has a different, far more practical motive: money. Their job is to literally steal funds to finance the cash-strapped North Korean regime. They were famously linked to the 2014 Sony Pictures hack and the audacious $81 million Bangladesh bank heist in 2016. They had proven their skill in financial fraud mechanics. They took the NSA's stolen Eternal Blue exploit and wrapped it in something truly nasty: ransomware. It would encrypt everything it touched and demand payment in Bitcoin. But the Lazarus Group added the master stroke that made WannaCry truly diabolical. They made it a worm. Normal ransomware is like a typical phishing attack or a burglar. It needs you to open the door, usually by clicking a bad link or opening an infected email attachment, the hallmark of many dark web scams. But a worm is a ghost that walks through walls. It finds one vulnerable computer, infects it, and then immediately uses the network to search for more victims, all on its own. One infected machine becomes two becomes four, and the growth becomes exponential and unstoppable. The North Koreans had their weapon. They had millions of unpatched targets. All they needed was the right moment to strike. They chose a Friday, a time when IT staff are thin and businesses are winding down. The worst possible moment for a rapid global response. 7:44 a.m. United Kingdom time. May 12, 2017. The first major wave hits the UK's National Health Service. Doctors cannot access patient records, blood types, or allergy lists. Surgeries were postponed, chemotherapy was delayed. Hospitals resorted to using paper and whiteboards, scrambling to save lives while a red screen mockingly demanded $300 in Bitcoin. The ransom message itself was almost a taunt. Pay within 3 days, or the price doubles. Pay within 7 days, or everything is deleted forever. This was different from a typical targeted business email compromise, or BEC, financial fraud. WannaCry was indiscriminate. In Madrid, Spain, employees at Telefonica, a global telecom giant, were literally ripping network cables out of the walls to contain the spread. In France and England, massive Renault and Nissan car factories ground to a halt. Assembly line robots froze, turning multi-million-dollar machinery into inert paperweights. In Russia, despite their sophisticated cyber capabilities, the Interior Ministry and Russian railways were hit hard. But the real, silent crisis was in global commerce. FedEx's TNT Express global shipping network was infected. The companies that move our packages, our critical medical supplies, our food, they couldn't track anything. In our just-in-time economy, where supply chains rely on constant, flawless digital communication, WannaCry had delivered a global heart attack. By noon, experts were calling it the worst cybercrime documentary incident in history. It was still accelerating. The infection count was doubling every hour. At this rate, by Monday morning, every vulnerable Windows computer on Earth would be encrypted. Someone, somewhere, had to find a way to stop it. The hero we needed wasn't in a government war room or a Silicon Valley high-rise. He was in his childhood bedroom in Ilfracombe, England, wearing a Star Wars t-shirt. His name is Marcus Hutchins, and online, he went by Malware Tech. While the world burned, Marcus was doing what he did every day, reverse engineering malicious code. He downloaded a sample of the WannaCry worm and ran it in a sandbox. That is a quarantined virtual computer. As he sifted through the code, something caught his eye. Buried deep in the malware's programming was a random-looking string of characters, a bizarre, unregistered domain name. The code was designed to perform a check. If the domain existed, was registered, WannaCry would stop running and would not encrypt the files or spread. If the domain did not exist, was unregistered, WannaCry would continue its infection. Marcus stared at it, confused. Why would a malware worm, a weapon of digital warfare, have an off switch anyone could trigger? Then it hit him. This was not a kill switch for the good guys. It was a simple anti-analysis check. Hackers often run their malware in sandboxes that simulate a fake internet environment where every domain appears to exist. The Lazarus group likely figured if their impossible gibberish domain was found, they must be in a security researcher sandbox. This meant they should stop running to avoid being dissected. It was clever, but they made one massive, world-saving mistake. They relied on the domain being unregistered in the real world. Marcus did the crazy, brilliant thing. He went to a domain registrar, typed in that ridiculous string, and bought it for about $10.69 USD. He paid with a credit card. He then pointed the domain to a sinkhole server, intending only to track the infection rate. 11:43 a.m. The domain goes live. 11:47 a.m. Global WannaCry infections stop spreading. Just like that. The unstoppable digital plague was halted by a curious kid and a $10 credit card purchase. His phone immediately blew up. Journalists, the FBI, and security firms all wanted to know who had registered the domain. The accidental hero had saved the world. The immediate crisis was over. The worm was dead, but the infected computers remained locked. The vital question remained: who was behind this near-global collapse? Every intelligence agency in the world got to work. Slowly, the digital breadcrumbs pointed one way. Clue 1. The geography. Infection maps showed a massive number of infections in Russia, Ukraine, and Taiwan, but there was one glaring hole: North Korea. It was a country-shaped blank spot where almost no infections occurred. It was like finding a crime scene where everyone is covered in blood except the perpetrator. Clue 2. The code. NSA analysts found 67 lines of code in WannaCry that were identical, not similar, but identical, to code used in the 2014 Sony Pictures hack. That attack was definitively attributed to the Lazarus group. The chance of this being a coincidence is astronomically low. Clue 3. The language. The ransomware note was written in 28 languages. 27 of them were clearly Google translated, full of errors. But the Korean and simplified Chinese versions were linguistically perfect. They used terminology specific to North Korea. On the 19th of December 2017, the US government officially declared it. North Korea is behind WannaCry. But here's the chilling truth. WannaCry was a failure. The hackers collected only about $140,000 in ransom, pocket change for a state-sponsored criminal group. Meanwhile, they caused an estimated $4 billion in damages. This led to the most terrifying conclusion of this cybercrime documentary. WannaCry was not really about the money. It was a test. North Korea was demonstrating that they could weaponize American cyber tools and bring global commerce to a standstill. They showed that a nation with a small economy could execute an attack of unprecedented scale. The story does not end there, either. Marcus Hutchins, the guy who saved the world, was arrested by the FBI in August 2017. The charges were for creating and distributing the Kronos banking Trojan and UPAS-Kit malware between 2014 and 2015. Charges completely unrelated to WannaCry. He eventually pleaded guilty to reduced charges and received time served. But the irony was lost on no one. The hero was treated like a criminal. The attackers are not gone. Since 2017, the Lazarus group has grown and evolved. Their new weapons do not have kill switches. They do not announce themselves with red screens. They are quiet, patient, designed for long-term cyber espionage and future sabotage. Intelligence agencies have since detected North Korean malware lurking inside global power grids, water treatment facilities, and financial systems. They are not active yet. They are just sitting there, waiting for the order. The WannaCry attack was a brutal education for the world. It showed us that the weakest link in cybersecurity is often the person who clicks "Remind me later" or opens a suspicious email. But we learned. And you can take immediate steps to protect yourself, your family, and your business from becoming the next victim of ransomware or financial fraud. The single most important lesson from WannaCry is patching. Turn on automatic updates for your operating system and all applications. If an update is available, install it immediately. Do not be a sitting duck. Another essential cybersecurity protocol is using multi-factor authentication, or MFA. This is the ultimate defense against compromised passwords from a phishing attack or data breach. Use an authenticator app for every critical account: email, banking, social media. MFA will block 99% of unauthorized login attempts. Next, adopt the 3-2-1 backup rule. The only true recovery from ransomware is a clean backup. This rule means keep 3 copies of your data on 2 different media types, with 1 copy stored offline, completely unplugged from your network. If the hackers cannot reach your backup, they cannot force you to pay. Finally, be a phishing skeptic. Financial fraud starts with trust. Never click on links or download attachments from an email you are not expecting. Even if it looks like it is from your bank, FedEx, or a coworker, always verify the sender's email address by hovering over it. If you are unsure, go directly to the company's official website instead of clicking the link. WannaCry was not the end of the war. It was just the first major battle. In the digital age, state-sponsored attackers, ransomware gangs, and simple dark web scammers are constantly evolving their tactics. They are better funded, more organized, and more patient than ever before. The fight against cybercrime is real, and the stakes are our hospitals, our banks, and our global economy. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and never forget the $10 mistake that saved the world. Thank you for watching this cybercrime documentary. I am the Digital Sleuth, and I will see you next time.